Hey gang, it's your old buddy Platt. Today we're continuing on our wine series. Today we're going to talk about sparkling wine / champagne. Even though they're technically kind of different, I'm just going to lump this all in one video for practical purposes. Sparkling wine is basically wine with bubbles in it or CO2 in it. Most of the time when you see bubbles, it's going to be CO2. Champagne is sparkling wine, but not all sparkling wine is champagne. A good way to think about it is cognac and brandy. Cognac is a brandy, but not all brandies are cognac. Simple way to think about it. Sparkling wine can be ferment or can have carbonation added by a few different methods. One, they carbonate in the bottle, similar to bottle conditioning and home brewing if you're a home brewer. Next is batch carbonation, where they do a big batch. We get the bubbles inside, and then we start bottling it with those bubbles already in the liquid. And then last, and the cheapest way to do it, and what you'll see in cheaper sparkling wines, is it is injected with CO2. We just pump the CO2 in. We don't let the yeast do that second fermentation. Most sparkling wines are usually white wine, but they can be rosé. There's even a few reds out there. Probably the most known red sparkling wine is sparkling Shiraz from Australia. Sparkling wine is most known from being from France, but it can be made anywhere. This is where the champagne sparkling wine thing kind of comes in. Champagne has to come from France, has to come from the Champagne region of France, and has to be made with what's called méthode champenoise, or champagne method, or as they refer to as the traditional method. So it's from a certain country, a certain region of that country, and a certain method. There's other little steps involved. They do the carbonation inside the bottle, so there's a second fermentation. They start with certain grapes. For champagne, they use Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Now there are 4 or 5 other grapes that technically can go into champagne, but those are the 3 big ones and the 3 that you will most likely see. You will see a term on champagne every once in a while, Blanc de Blanc or Blanc de Noir, and Blanc de Blanc is white from white. So Chardonnay is a white wine grape. It'll be a white wine, or the champagne from whites, and then Blanc de Noir is white from black grape, or Pinot Noir grape. That is what that's for if you ever see that on a bottle. Like I said, they're bottle conditioned. They'll start off, let's say take a Chardonnay and make a Chardonnay wine, they'll fully ferment it, usually somewhat dry, and then additional yeast and sugar are added in the bottle, and then CO2 is created in the bottle. Actually, one of the rumors or stories about champagne out there is that it was created by Dom Perignon, a monk. Actually, Dom Perignon was assigned to help find and stop the bubbles. Effervescence in some form or fashion has been in wine for thousands of years. A lot of times it's kind of a happy accident or whatever that kind of happens. What was happening in the Champagne region of France, Champagne is far northern France, and a lot of times at the end of harvest they would mash the grapes, start the fermentation, and the cool weather would halt the fermentation. And they thought fermentation was done, that the yeast had done its full job, so they went ahead, capped the bottles, throw it in the cellar. Well, what would happen was when the springtime and the weather started warming up, there was still some sugar left over, and there was still some yeast that hadn't died, hadn't finished their job, and they would start back up again. And it would start building pressure in the bottle, and these bottles would explode. And it wasn't just one random bottle exploding. One would explode and set off a chain. And these monks were losing a lot of wine like that. So they had to figure it out, and that's what they charged Dom Perignon with. And he kind of figured it out, but again, at the time in France, they did not like this. They weren't shooting for effervescent wines. But some of this got to England, and the English loved it. Also, what England had at the time an advantage. They had better glass making, and they were able to create bottles that could handle that pressure. So the British ended up designing this bottle and designing the French to make that bubbly wine for us, and we've got the bottles for it. So that's kind of how that came around. But Dom Perignon was still a very important player in Champagne. One of the things he encouraged and did was they had these almost like a catcher's mask in baseball used to handle these bottles because they would explode. It was for safety reasons. Very interesting story. As far as other sparkling wines, however, in France, Champagne's not the only region that produces sparkling wines in France. In other regions, they'll use the term Cremant. You might hear Cremant de Loire, Cremant de Bordeaux, and that is sparkling wines from those different regions. In neighboring Spain, they make very excellent sparkling wine. They use the same method, Champagne, but there they call it Cava, and they're excellent. They're, in my opinion, as excellent as a lot of the great French champagnes, but it's called Cava in Spain. In Italy, they refer to their sparkling wines as Spumante, and a lot of times before Spumante, you'll have the region before Veneto Spumante or something like that. Some winemakers will use the traditional method, and some will use the batch method of carbonation. So you get a little contrast there in Italy. And here in the U.S., we run the whole gamut. There are some excellent sparkling wines made with the Champagne method, and then again we have the lower quality stuff that gets broke out around New Year's that has the CO2 ejected. But sparkling wine can be made anywhere, and again running the gamut of how they carbonate. One thing in here we'll quickly talk about is the pressure inside the bottle. Champagne is more highly carbonated than bottled beer. If you're getting into winemaking at home, and like, hey, I'll make some champagne, I'll just use my beer bottles. And no. Vastly more pressure in a champagne bottle than your bottle of home brew. Inside a traditional sparkling wine bottle, anywhere to 5 to 6 atmosphere pressures inside the bottle. That's why you'll see a bevel in here. This is not for the thumb. This is actually to give more surface area and allow that pressure to spread out. Now, there's another variation on sparkling wine called frizzante, and that's semi-sparkling wine. And that is carbonated up to about 2.5 atmosphere pressure, so a lot less, probably closer to beer-wise as far as carbonation levels. Another thing when buying sparkling wine is you want to know the sweetness level. You go anywhere from Brut Nature, which is bone dry, 0 to very little sugar, all the way up to Doux, D-O-U-X. That's very sweet. Not a lot of that on the marketplace. Most of what you're going to see in the marketplace is somewhere between Brut, which is dry, and Demi-Sec, semi-sweet, kind of in that range. The particular sparkling wine we're going to try today is the Martini and Asti Spumante. If you're of a certain age, you might remember the TV commercials. There's a little jingle that kind of went with the name. This comes at 7.5% alcohol by volume, so it's not a high ABV. And it is from the Piedmont region of Italy, and it is, according to the tag, a DOCG wine. So we're looking at a decent quality wine, even though it was always kind of sold, in the section of the liquor store that wasn't necessarily nice quality, but it is a quality sparkling wine. This is not necessarily the proper way to open the bottle, but we'll do a separate video on service of wine here in a later video. You'll want to keep, a little trick though, you will want to keep a hand on the cage while you're undoing this, because again, we've got a lot of pressure in there. So I've twisted off the cage. Some people will tell you hold on to the cage. Some will tell you can take it off. That's up to how comfortable you are with it. And then you want to hold the cork and then twist the bottle. There we go. Alright. Pour it nice and slow. Don't want to bubble up too much, even though it is real fizzy. Now, here is one, before we give her a try, here's one quick debate a lot of wine experts and people have. Most people like them in these little flutes like that. It looks real nice. The bubbles are real pretty and everything. But some people will tell you they don't like it because it's really hard to get the old snout in there while you're taking a drink. A lot of wine experts say you want to smell it while you're drinking. And it's hard to do in that little flute. It's up to you. I think a lot of times when you break out the bubbles, it's for a more festive occasion. So have a little fun, break out the flute. Let's give her a try. Well, that's nice. Plenty of sweetness for me. It is not. Okay, on the back it says sweet. I about to say did not denote brut or anything on the back. So it's a sweet sparkling wine, which I think kind of does the job. Oh yeah, lighter body, nice, quick little sweetness. That's very nice. Not too acidic. Sometimes, maybe it's just me, I get a lot of acidity in some of these sparkling wines, and it's just too much for me. But this seems really nice. One thing about champagne that's real great is it pairs with so many foods. It's really versatile. It's a nice palate cleanser between courses of water. So, yeah, sparkling wine. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video. Lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section. Or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.